Our IVF clinic called us back at 6 months pregnant. They said there was a mix-up. We thought it was a billing issue. That's the thing about IVF. You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Another payment, another test, another just to be safe scan that costs more than your monthly rent. So when the clinic called and said they needed us to come in urgently, we didn't panic. We just assumed we owed them money. My husband made a joke about it on the drive, one hand on the steering wheel, the other tapping lightly like he was bracing himself. He has that dry kind of humor, the kind that shows up when he's uncomfortable but trying not to make it a big deal. "What is it this time?" he said, glancing at me. "Emotional damage fee? Air conditioning surcharge?" I hawed, because that's what we do. We keep things light, even when we not. We've always done that, especially with this process, adjustly with how long it took to get here. I'm Filipino, born and raised in Manila, practical by default, taught early to keep things moving, no matter how hard they get. He's not. He's from somewhere colder, quieter, the kind of place where people don't say everything they're thinking, but show up anyway, consistently, gently. Between the two of us, we've built something that works. Not perfect, not dramatic, just steady. We don't pray before meals, we don't talk about destiny, we don't frame things as signs. We believe in effort, in timing, in doing the best you can with what you're given. Which is probably why we weren't prepared for any of this. When we got to the clinic, they didn't take us to the usual consultation room. No pastel walls, no smiling baby photos, no soft music pretending everything was fine. They brought us into a conference room, and there were other people there, not just our doctor. There was a man in a suit who didn't look like hospital staff, another man wearing a collar, like a priest, except older, quieter, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you've already done something wrong. And then a third man by the window, not sitting, not introducing himself, just watching us like he already knew how this was going to go. My husband squeezed my hand, just once, subtle but firm. "This better not be about insurance," he said. No one laughed. Our doctor sat across from us, hands folded too tightly, her voice careful in a way that made everything feel less stable instead of more. She told us the pregnancy was progressing well, which should have been reassuring, but didn't land the way she probably intended. The man in the suit slid a folder across the table, thick enough to feel unnecessary. "We need to discuss a procedural error," he said. I asked what kind, already feeling that shift, that small internal adjustment you make when you realize this isn't going to be simple. There was a pause, the kind that stretches just long enough to make you aware of it, the kind where you can feel people choosing their words because none of them are good. The priest spoke first, carefully, like he'd said this before, but never in a way that sounded normal. "Your child was conceived using a restricted sample." My husband frowned, leaning forward slightly. "Restricted how? Like experimental donor?" The man by the window finally moved then, stepping closer, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed in a way that didn't match the room. He smiled, and it wasn't exaggerated or theatrical, just slightly off, like something about it didn't quite follow the rules. "Restricted," he said, almost conversational, as in not cleared for general use, or any use really. It was being held. "Held where?" I asked. He tilted his head, considering me like I'd asked a fair question, but maybe not one I'd like the answer to. "Joint custody," he said. "Your clinic has partnerships." The priest closed his eyes briefly, like he'd heard that phrasing one too many times. The lawyer stepped in quickly, smoothing things over, or trying to. The sample was not meant to be used in any IVF procedure. It was preserved for containment purposes. My husband gave a short laugh, the kind he uses when something doesn't make sense. "Containment? What is this, a sci-fi movie?" No one answered him. I felt my stomach tighten then, and not in the way it had been tightening for months now. This was different. Colder, sharper, like something inside me was bracing. "What sample?" I asked. The man looked directly at me and said it like it was nothing. "Antichrist," I laughed. I actually laughed, because that's what your brain does when something doesn't fit anywhere it knows how to categorize. "Okay," I said, shaking my head slightly. "Very funny. Is this some kind of—" "It's not a joke," the priest said. Quiet. Certain. And that was when something inside me dropped. Not completely, just enough to make space for doubt. My husband leaned forward, his voice tighter now, more grounded, like he was trying to pin this down into something logical. "You're telling us our baby is— what? Evie?" The lawyer shook his head immediately. "No, that's not how this works." I asked how it did work, because if we were going to sit through this, I needed something that made sense, or at least something that followed its own rules. Another pause. The child has potential, the priest said, a lineage, a nature, but nature is not destiny. The man nodded slightly, like he agreed but didn't feel the need to soften it. Free will, he added, big thing, very important to both sides. Both sides, my husband repeated. Upstairs, downstairs, the man said lightly, like he was talking about departments instead of whatever this was. We agreed a long time ago, no forced outcomes. The kid chooses, always. I looked at them, at all of them, trying to understand what part of this I was supposed to accept first. You're saying my baby has to choose to be the Antichrist. Yes, the lawyer said, relieved almost that this part sounded structured. It is not automatic, not predetermined. It is, legally speaking, a matter of agency. My husband let out a breath. You're using legal terms. There are contracts, the man said, almost amused. You'd be surprised how much paperwork goes into the end of the world. The priest gave him a look. What he means, the lawyer corrected quickly, is that your child will have influences, expectations, but ultimately the decision rests with them. With a baby, I said? With a person, the priest corrected gently. My back in my chair, my hand already on my stomach with outing. For 6 months, this had been simple. Difficult, expensive, emotional, but simple. We wanted a child. Now they were telling me I was carrying something that came with terms, something that would eventually make a choice I couldn't control. I asked what happens next, because that felt like the only useful question left. The doctor said they would continue to monitor the pregnancy as normal. Normal. The word didn't land. There would also be observers, the lawyer added, from both parties. From afar, the priest said quickly. Mostly, the man added. I looked at him. And you are? He smiled again. Compliance, he said, from below. The next few weeks felt like a joke we weren't in on, except no one else knew, and we couldn't exactly explain it without sounding like we'd lost it. So we did what everyone does. We Googled. Nothing helpful comes up when you search Antichrist pregnancy symptoms. It's mostly forums, conspiracy blogs, and one podcast that somehow made everything worse. But then things started happening. Small things at first. The ultrasound technician went quiet during one appointment, not alarmed, just confused, turning the monitor slightly away and then back again. She said it was probably a shadow, but for a second I thought I saw something curved where there shouldn't be. The baby kicked harder whenever someone said, "Bless you." I started craving burnt food, not grilled, not toasted, burnt, charred to the point of smoke. And once, when my husband played a lullaby playlist, the speaker cut out completely, but when he switched to heavy metal, it worked perfectly, like nothing had happened. We didn't talk about it directly. We just adjusted. Instead, we went to the support group, because apparently that was a thing. It looked like any other prenatal class. Plastic chairs, warm lighting, a whiteboard with "You are not alone" written in careful handwriting. Except the people there were not dealing with normal pregnancies. A woman casually mentioned she was carrying a minor Greek entity. Her baby had already broken 2 ultrasound machines. A couple said their twins argued, not cried, argued. And one man sat quietly, holding a baby and whispering in a language I didn't recognize. I'm guessing it's Latin, and my husband said the baby was whispering horse names from the Kentucky Derby lineup. No one questioned anything. No one reacted. We were all just there, trying to make sense of what we'd been given. On the drive home, my husband didn't turn on the radio. He just drove, hands steady on the wheel. After a while, he said, very quietly, "We can still raise him right." Him. We hadn't even talked about that. Or her, I said automatically. Or her, he agreed. There was a pause. "Do you think that matters?" he asked. I looked down at my stomach, at the movement beneath my skin, and for a moment, everything else, the clinic, the priest, the man from compliance, fell away. It was just me and the child. I think, I said slowly, we don't get to decide what they are. Another small kick, soft. But maybe we get to decide how they grow. The due date is in 2 weeks. The clinic has called twice. The priest said they'll be nearby. The man from compliance said the same thing, from afar, like that makes it better. I don't know what's going to happen when the baby is born. I don't know what it will be. I don't know what it will choose. But last night, lying in bed, I felt something shift. Not a kick, not movement, something else. Like the air in the room had changed, like something was waiting. And for the first time in 6 months, I think it might be ready.